I am thrilled about the opportunity to picking up the wisdom from Mike Riemer, who is Ivanti's SVP of Network Security and Field CISO. Mike and I will explore how kernel-level security, secure by design principles, and Ivanti's own rapid transformation can help organizations stay resilient against AI-driven threats today. And during the session, please feel free to ask any questions as they come to you. We'll be monitoring the chat to get these answered. Hello, Mike. Welcome to, thank you for joining me today.
Hey, Helen. Glad to be here. Looking forward to the conversation.
You know, Mike, I came across your interview with VentureBeat recently, where you said threat actors leveraging AI for attacks is no longer theoretical. So what does this mean for security leaders?
Yeah, let's talk about that. I mean, that's something that in today's day and age with threat actors and how threat actor behavior has elevated, especially over the last 24 to 36 months, we're having to change our tactics and we're having to look at a different way of how threat actors are getting into our environments. Old days where we could just make sure that a firewall was there, or we had intrusion detection or intrusion prevention systems to alert that their threat actors are now hiding themselves in good data and good traffic flow, and so we can't always see the bad behavior with those types of solutions any longer. And so we have to pivot to new monitoring types of technology and new ways of detecting threat actors coming into our environments.
That's sobering reality, Mike. I miss those old days where we just need a firewall. That's all. We're all going to be protected. But the speed at which these threats materialize is equally concerning. In the same interview, you actually mentioned adversaries can now reverse engineer and attack unpatched systems in as little as 72 hours. Can you unpack what that means for organizations still on monthly patching systems or monthly patching cycles?
Yeah, it's a scary, very, very scary world nowadays. I can release, as a software vendor, I can release this patch, and it doesn't even have to be advertised as a security patch, just a normal patch that I put out. And threat actors can actually take that patch and they can reverse engineer it and compare it to the previous release, and they can understand what the differences are between those two, and they can use that to understand the changes made in the software, and then they can use AI to attempt to weaponize that change. And if it is a security weakness that's been addressed, they know about it and they can build a proof of concept against it. And as I said, within 72 hours. And that was something that when we were talking with VentureBeat a few months ago, but just recently, actually, Azure reported they actually have a honeypot network out on the internet that they use to test this types of theories, where they actually put code that has security issues with it, and they publish it out onto their honeypots, and they actually found threat actors starting to attack it within 90 seconds of being published. So what we see is threat actors becoming extremely aggressive, and we see them utilizing AI in a way to help speed up the process, where we used to see it take 45 to 60 days for a threat actor to reverse engineer a patch, which gave plenty of time for your standard patch cycle to go through. Now we have 72 hours and less. And so it's up to us as vendors creating software solutions in order to assist our customers so that they have a better way of patching and keeping real-time patches on their systems, so that threat actors don't have this opportunity to reverse engineer these fixes and then use them against customers that haven't patched.
Well, that example is very telling, right? AI becomes a double-edged sword when it comes to cybersecurity. So the timeline has fundamentally shifted. Let's zoom out for a moment, Mike. Could you walk us through how AI is reshaping the cybersecurity threat landscape? What's different now compared to 12 to 18 months ago?
Yeah, as I said, it's really accelerated, and with threat actors being able to utilize AI in ways that hadn't been thought about before. From everything from deep fake, which can help them get into corporate networks and being able to represent themselves as somebody they're not. And if there's a human being involved in that, we start to see that the AI can trick the human being into allowing systems in. We see this a lot with not only with deepfake, but we also see it with phishing campaigns that are now highly customized to an individual, because AI can collect information on a specific individual, and a threat actor can then target that individual with that customized information that AI is providing. So really what we're seeing is the age of threat actor behavior being accelerated by the use of AI. And that has greatly changed in the last 12 to 16, 18 months. So what we can do as defenders and network enthusiasts is get more into a monitoring state. We have to not rely upon systems that we used to rely on in the past, and we have to go to more proactive monitoring and basically turn on everything that you can, start reviewing every type of communication protocol going across your network, and really get into least privilege access and start locking down communications within your network to only authorized communication protocols and important protocols. So that all of a sudden you have, a remote desktop protocol, RDP session happening on your network. Is it supposed to be there? And you have to be able to monitor, identify that, and then determine whether or not that type of traffic belongs there. And this is all going to be done through monitoring systems until proactive AI gets into place. And this is, the concept of using AI in a defender mode and being proactive as far as, defending against these types of adversary attacks.
Sounds to me that we have leveraged AI to combat bad AI actors, right? Mike, for those who might be wondering how this impacts their current security investment, can you explain why traditional perimeter-based security isn't enough anymore against these AI-driven threats?
We're seeing bad actors actually put their payload directly into good data. And so they're actually hiding it within a good data stream. Conventional, what we'll say traditional perimeter-based security only looks at port and protocol. It's looking at, source address and destination address. And is this allowed? Is this not allowed? Is this protocol being allowed to go through? Your typical firewall kind of style policies. And even intrusion detection and prevention can't do that any longer because they're looking for specific signatures. And the threat actors aren't using those specific signatures anymore. Like I said, they're hiding their payload directly inside of good traffic data, and it's one of those that they can turn around and send in their malware in a decompiled mode or in a splayed across multiple packets, splayed across multiple communication threads, and then reassemble once it gets inside the network through your traditional perimeter-based security defenses. And that's why we have to really look at monitoring at this point in time until we can start to identify user behavior, and then we start to track network access and network communication based upon user behavior. And when we start to see something that isn't normal user behavior, that's when it's flagged out. And we're going to need AI to help us with that, because that's an immense amount of information that has to be looked at in a very short period of time, and sometimes in milliseconds, in order to identify if there is a threat actor behavior that we're seeing coming across the wire.
Yeah, that's important. Given these evolving threats, Mike, let's shift to what's working on the defense side. What exactly is secure by design, and why is it critical for resilience against these adaptive attacks?
Yeah, secure by design is something that first came out in concept in late 2023, and then in early 2024, actually, Avanti was was the first of the software vendors to sign the Secure by Design pledge with CISO. The concept really for security by design is multi-leveled. The first is being internally from a culture perspective from the development teams. I've weaved Secure by Design now directly into the DNA of the engineering teams that we have here at Ivanti. Everything they do, every line of code they write, there is security first in their mindset. We use tools to actually evaluate every line of code that the developers are writing. At first, there was some pushback to that because they felt it was like Big Brother watching them. But what they've now seen is that it's helped them and it's changed their culture from a design perspective, that they're thinking of security first as they do it and as they designed it. This process took probably close to 6 months for us to get everybody up to speed and moving in that direction. And we did see a slowdown at first. But what now we see is that because the design of the solution, design of the software, the way they're writing code, there's far less found defects when we hit to our normal static and dynamic code analysis tools. And when we get to those and we actually use those codes on those tools on a daily basis to scan our repositories to make sure that anything that has been merged into it doesn't have any type of security vulnerability into it, we're finding that we're not finding things there. It's coming in clean. And that's because the developers have become much better at catching it as they're coding it versus waiting until it's getting merged into the code base where a scanner will find it. So that actually is sped up. We've introduced, multi-level of peer review in our code development process. Standard software development lifecycle will tell you that you do peer review of code development. We actually have 3 levels of peer review now. One is for functionality, one is for security, and then another one is for overall functionality, security, and commenting on the code. And so this type of aggressive nature of evaluation at the time the code is built is making for a much more secure solution and secure product as we move forward.
Well, that architecture makes so much sense to me. I like the fact that that's human-centered, right? You're taking people with you and you're shifting the culture along. For teams evaluating their options, what are the key advantages to working with a vendor that leverages kernel security?
Well, in kernel security, Secure by Design as a whole, when you're looking at utilizing the Secure by Design techniques within and evaluating a vendor that's using it, you know that the code that's being created by that vendor is clean. You know that it's been tested multiple times, not only at time of creation, but it's also being tested along the way throughout the software development lifecycle. As I said, a standard SDLC just gave you the capability of testing at the latter stages as you merge the code in and you were getting ready to run a build for general release. That's when you would do the scans to make sure that you didn't have any issues. Here we've gone to a secure software development lifecycle, and we've implemented multi-stage of not only scanning, but also of true testing, where we're taking known vulnerability payload, proof of concepts from the internet, from known vulnerability, known attacks, and we turn around and we use that against our own code, and we see how it survives and making sure that we're thwarting off those types of threat actor behaviors that we've seen from previous types of exploitation. And that's another piece of Secure by Design that we highly encourage, which is transparency. And that's when we find a weakness within our software, we find an issue within ours that had gotten past us, we go ahead, we fix it, but we also announce it. We publish a CVE on it. And the reason for that is to give other defenders, other software vendors out there, the knowledge that, hey, here was a mistake that we had. Here was a weakness that we had that we found could be potentially exploited. Go look for it in your code. When it comes down to it, when we look at software stacks as a whole, I think it was Forbes that published about 1.5 years ago, there was about $14 trillion worth of backlog in unsafe and code design, and it had to be reworked. This is just helping from a Secure by Design perspective and being transparent about things. This is helping the software industry to find weaknesses and issues within their their code base that they can go and clean up themselves. And that takes it away from that advantage that the threat actors have, right? When we don't say anything as software vendors and we keep that information to ourselves, then of course, then the threat actors can use the same thing and go to the next vendor and the next vendor and the next vendor, because we're all using the same style of open source code bases. We're all using the same style of communication type techniques. And when the bad guys find something, they know they can go and hit multiple vendors that are using the same style of software and same style of product portfolio, as it were.
That's remarkable firsthand transformation experience you mentioned there. I learned that Ivanti compressed a 3-year roadmap into 18 months. What drove that acceleration, and what did that journey look like?
When we started out, it was a big cultural shift that we had to do. And once we got the development teams looking at security as a daily requirement, as a daily part of their job as they were doing it, and did that cultural shift, like I said, we saw an acceleration of what they were able to do. We also went into what I call crowdsourcing. And when we do crowdsourcing, it's basically the entire development team, because they have their hands in the code every day. If they saw something, they found anything, I actually started a reward board, and as each one of the developers would find issues, they would report it, we would fix it. The individual who was leading the reward board at the end of the month would be financially rewarded for finding the most. This crowdsourcing type of activity really galvanized the entire team, and it actually sped up the entire process of what we were looking to do. So just basic, putting in what I would say, internal team competition to drive acceleration worked very, very well with the team. They took ownership of the code base, and we were able to move things forward much faster than was first anticipated.
Well, kudos to your vision and leadership there. Accelerating any major initiative comes with obstacles. What were the biggest challenges you really faced during this rapid transformation? How did you overcome them?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is as we changed our processes, because we did, like I said, completely, there was portions of the code that we ripped out and we threw in the trash can. And we actually implemented, brand new code base into the solution in order to make things run as we wanted it to. And by doing that actually changed a lot of our internal processes that we had to overcome. So it was outside stakeholders that we work with. It's our DevOps teams, our DevSecOps teams, and how we were working with them. And we had to change out some tooling because we were going to a new code base and different type of code base that we weren't used to testing before. And so that meant that everything DevSecOps was doing, they had to change and modify with their tools so that they were looking at different. So that type of collaboration with the stakeholders here was key in driving that change and driving through those obstacles that we had was probably the most difficult. But again, it was one of those that everybody understood what the end state goal was, and we just prioritized and we moved through each one of those obstacles as we hit them.
These lessons are invaluable for organizations evaluating their technology partners. Speaking of vendor selection, secure by design should be a key factor. So beyond vendors simply telling you, hey, we follow all these principles, what specific evidence should procurement or security teams demand to verify their commitment?
Yeah, and that's something that, this is I always say, this is how we make the sausage. And a lot of times people don't want to know that, but it's getting to the point where you need to know that. How is your vendor developing code, and what type of security parameters are they putting in? And so what folks should be doing when they're doing an evaluation is they need to look for certifications of testing and audits that are going on inside their network within their software development process. So are they SOC 2 Type 2? Do they have ISO certification? If they claim to be secure by design, take a look at their transparency on CVEs. Do they have published CVEs? Are they on a normal basis or regular basis announcing CVEs? Because I can guarantee you every software version of everybody's product out there has a vulnerability in it. This was, as I said, by the Forbes article, it said there's $14 trillion worth of issues out there that need to be faced. So everybody's software, it's designed by human beings, so therefore it will have a flaw in it. And because of that, you need to go through, find those flaws, and you need to be transparent about those flaws. When I'm doing an evaluation of a vendor that we work with, the first thing I do is I go out and take a look and see how many CVEs have they released. That tells me their level of dedication to secure by design. And it shows me that they are actually moving themselves forward as a secure by design vendor. If they claim to be and they haven't released any CVEs since they claimed to start secure by design, or they've only released one or two, they're not really taking it serious. Security, and again, this is where we get into risk management and all the things that CISOs get involved with. When we do security questionnaires, risk management questionnaires, and responding to CISOs that want to know what it is that we're doing, we do provide all of our standard SOC 2 Type 2s, our ISO certifications. We walk them through our secure software development lifecycle. We show them pen test reports. We show them, any type of SaaS, DAS that we've autonomized so that they can look at. But what it comes down to is what is the level of transparency that vendor has with you based upon their secure by design principles, and having them show you and tell you what it is that they're doing and seeing the proof, like I said, through CVEs being released and through, communication that they're doing from a transparency. That's how you tell a vendor is truly, truly doing secure by design.
That's a very important point you just made there, Mike. I mean, I went through a few of those auditing lately, right? The transparency is so critical. When you work with vendor, you have to be honest with each other on what happened and then some of the vulnerabilities you may anticipate. So thank you for sharing that. Let's bring this into a sharper focus for security leaders making decisions right now. Network security solutions have been under aggressive attack in the past 2 years. What should security leaders consider when selecting their network access solutions?
Yeah, it's unfortunate that, fortunate and unfortunate. The edge devices have been under attack, and we see that. And I don't think there's an edge device solution out there that hasn't undergone some level of attack by a nation state or a persistent threat actor. And so what we need to do is and what customers can do is take a look at what the solution is and take a look at the vendor that's creating that. Everybody's been attacked at different levels, but what is the response? How are they responding? And, from our perspective, when we got attacked, we found out down the road that it was an attack that had happened to another vendor, and they chose not to be transparent about it. So it was one of those where, had they been transparent, we would have found out about it. We would have gone ahead and protected our solution prior to being attacked. But we weren't. And so when we got attacked, our reaction to it was to be transparent about everything. And so we started there and then getting in and digging in, rolling up the sleeves and making sure that we reconstructed from the bottom up a solution that not only is utilizing, modern day tech stack, but we also turned and we went after, from a security perspective, we started utilizing SE Linux profiling. If you're not familiar with SE Linux profiling, it's a security edition of Linux. Gives you the ability to go in and create security profiles around different areas of the software. And we've actually locked down the operating system that supports our application and locked down our application using security profiles. And we restrict which processes can talk to which processes. And this is a way of what you'll call kernel security. And it's a way to ensure that at a kernel level within the solution, that a threat actor cannot take over a process, cannot take over a section of the code and utilize it in a nefarious way against the rest of the code. And this locks things down and puts it into more of a security posture. So even if a threat actor is able to somehow get into one process, that process cannot be used in any other method than what it was intended to be used. And this really thwarts their behavior or their activity as a threat actor. And so it becomes very difficult for them to move around in the solution. They are very noisy, which then all of our systems and our alerts kick off, and all the protection mechanisms can then kick in. So those are things that, from a software perspective, you want to be able, as you're looking to select some sort of network access solution, you want to make sure that that vendor has vetted their solution to that level, and they're actually looking at, kernel level security within the solution. They're utilizing any type of least privilege access within the processes within the solution, and really look underneath the covers, not just at the features and functionality, but how is that software developed? How is that system architected? And they should be able to let you know exactly how it is so that you feel comfortable that, yes, this solution now meets modern requirements.
Well, those are very practical advice there, but that's really close with some actionable guidance too, right? What are the top actions security leaders should take in the next 30 to 60 days to harden their environment against threat actors?
I think the first thing that everyone do is, as I spoke about at the very beginning of our conversation, monitor. If you don't have monitoring systems in place, get them in place, and start turning up everything that you're looking at. You need to start analyzing all of the data paths on your network so that you understand what data should be going where and where it shouldn't be going, and what type of communication protocols are being utilized. You need to start looking at your users and what is a typical user behavior. User behavior analytics are going to be the authentication method in the future. We can no longer determine whether or not your username, password, your multi-factor authentication, even biometrics these days are all being thwarted by AI. And so going to behavior analytics, what is your typical behavior? What IP address do you come from? What type of device are you logging in from? What type of applications are you using, and what resources are you communicating with those resources? That is user behavior analytics, and that's going to be the authentication mechanism of the future. And so getting in with those types of solutions, those types of systems that can monitor and track that information today is exactly what people should be doing.
Thank you, Mike. That's a new M&M, right, in the new era, monitor. And, thank you for these practical recommendations. Now let's open it up to our audience. I do see a few questions on the right panel here. The first question came in is, our organization has legacy systems we can't immediately replace. What compensating controls should we prioritize? As a matter of fact, that's a question I get to be asked all the time.
And that's the situation that we have with a lot of customers these days. As I said, it's people can't replace systems as fast as they would like to. Budgetary restrictions and things of that nature. I have many friends that work in enterprise industries where they'll have a financial reporting system, or they have a manufacturing system that's 10, 12, 15 years old, and it's the lifeblood of the company, and they can't replace it. And so they're always like, what do I put in place, in order to protect this type of environment, because I can't do that. And as I said, I mean, that's the monitor. And you can go out and you can acquire a new monitoring system that's going to be able to track the communication and start to map out the information on your network, know what communication should be there, and understand how your users are accessing the resources. And once you've established that pattern of behavior, that becomes your guidepost of that's what I expect to see. And when I see something outside of that, give me an alert. And then I can go out and I can look at that and, was it gigabits of information being moved from my financial system to, a system that should not have any financial systems in? And this type of communication going on in the network is exactly what you're going to be looking for. There are folks that I've talked to from a compensating controls perspective. They started to put silos in. And siloing data has been a practice from a security perspective for many, many years, but it also creates its own challenges with east-west communication, and that is actually what we're starting to see a lot of from threat actor behavior. As I get into the environment, once I get into the environment, I start all that east-west because there is not a lot of protection in that east-west. So, looking at putting in those protection points from a east-west perspective. So you don't have to change out your legacy systems. You just have to put enough communication, monitoring, and security around those legacy systems so that you can track what's happening, what's going in, and what's coming out.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mike, for responding to this important question. The second question came in is about how do we justify the ROI of kernel level security investment to executive leadership?
I think you can probably look at what the cost is for a breach, and if you compare the cost of a breach, you compare it to reputational damage as well as potential of loss of intellectual property or implementation of ransomware, where it locks up your data and you have to turn around and you have to pay in order to get your data back, as compared to purchasing a solution and replacing a solution that now has kernel level security built into it, even if it's from the same vendor and you're just going to upgrade to the latest version that now has kernel level security. The cost of doing that is far less than the reputational damage or the cost of dealing with exfiltrated data or intellectual property.
Well, we have time for one more question here. Should we be concerned if our current vendors can't answer questions about their kernel security or eBPF migration plans?
Absolutely. This is not something that somebody can do a year from now, 2 years from now. Vendors need to be doing this today. Even when we look at the expanded eBPF, which is one of the philosophies or design changes that we're looking from a kernel perspective on the Linux operating system and creating quote unquote sandboxes within Linux in order to secure the solution, that's even been hacked. And so when we say that, there isn't a single way to protect a solution that will ultimately stop all vulnerability attacks, that's why monitoring is always going to be in need. So while we can make systems more resistant and we can deploy things like kernel security or utilizing eBPF, it's still not 100% silver bullet that's going to fix everything. And so we still need to have those monitorings out there. But if you have a vendor you're working with and they're not even having an initiative or they're not doing anything moving towards kernel security, then you need to ask yourself, do I really trust that vendor? Is this really somebody that I want to have in my network? Because it's like hiring a security guard with no ability to defend you. It's just another person standing there. You want to make sure that what you're bringing into your network, what you're putting on your network in order to protect it is actually able to protect it.
Well, thank you so much, Mike, for sharing your wisdom. And thank you all for joining us today. Our discussion reinforced the critical reality. Accelerating threats demand secure by design as the foundation for business resilience. So please explore the resources in the side panel and reach out if you want to go deeper on anything we covered today. Mike and I, as a matter of fact, will both be at RSAC in March. Hopefully you'll come and say hello if you are there as well. So thanks again, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Stay vigilant and stay secure.